So some version of this is happening in leadership rooms across the world. People leave the room, senior leaders stay behind, and they're talking and they're evaluating. And in that evaluation, they are saying things like, why don't they have it more together? What's wrong with them? Why don't they get it? What's their problem? And what's insane to me is this: who they are is a reflection of that leadership. How they're leading is a reflection of those leaders and the culture they're building, how they're coming across, what they're showing up as. And I get it. It's hard. It's hard to be in the mix with all these people in environments of leadership, all these challenges, the complexities and problems that you're facing, all the different wirings and personalities, all of that mix. It is hard to be able to pull out the thing that you just would rather go past. I was leading a leadership team previous lifetime before I do what I do now with SiteShift. And we just had a big, huge thing for the organization. So I'm leading and I say A, and the team is with me. And then one goes out and works their own agenda. And I'm like, what were you thinking? Well, you said B. I'm like, no, I said A. We got everybody back together for the next week's meeting. And I'm like, he went and did B. Didn't you hear me say A? And everybody's like, yeah, we heard you say A. It would be easy for me to have a victim mindset, to have a leading for validation mindset and say he's the problem. But ultimately it's my fault because I moved too quick past a moment rather than stopping and saying, because it was so big, what are you hearing me say? Hey, I'm Chris. Welcome to YouTube Live noon. We do it on Wednesdays, Eastern time. Lunch with Chris, we call it. I don't know what you're having for lunch today or breakfast if you're on the East Coast. I did wake up early, so my finishing of my lunch is my coffee, sponsor of the show, Cups from China. China's a sponsor of the show. And what we do in this YouTube Live is we take a leadership topic, we break it down for you. So you can drop in the chat things that stand out, resonate with you. I'll teach through this. And then at the end, we'll hit any questions you have live, whatever you've got. It could be related to the topic and it may not be, and that's okay too. So today I'm building out of the research we just released in the current version of what we call our Identity Fear Quotient. And we're measuring where a leader shows up insecure under stress or pressure. Over 1,000 people have taken it, and a percentage of those are C-suite leaders or executives. And out of these 37 companies, we see a pattern. And today what I'm going to do with you as I walk through this pattern, we're going to do something most leadership content doesn't do. We're going to take the most respected posture in the building, what you would think of as executive composure or executive maturity. And I use that term when I'm working with executive teams, but I have to define what I mean by it, not what they think I mean by it. We're going to take the most respected posture in the building, and we're going to ask an uncomfortable question. Is that posture earned? In other words, is it self-possessed? Have they learned this approach to not ride up and down through the whims of what's happening in the moment? Or is it performative? Is it a performance they're putting on? And I'm not saying I know for you what it is. I can say with the data, I know what is usually happening. And so if you haven't read the research yet, we released it to the newsletter list. You can go to siteshift.com. We'll be sharing more with a custom URL for a focus that we're doing around the 3% shift. And we may have it in the links in the description. But in this leadership study, we found something that I think you'll find super helpful for you as a leader and provocative to really be able to deconstruct and analyze leadership. Now, one more thing before we start. You know, I always approach things from a place of timeless wisdom. I'm looking at what are the stories that are playing out over thousands of years that hold our interest over and above little micro studies that get debunked. They sample a group of 7 people and it busts out on the news and here's what this study found. And I'm like, well, what's the sample size? What are the variables? So before we dive into the finding of the research, let me just set a couple of scenarios that you may have found yourself in as a leader. And I have no doubt many of you would have found it in your leadership today, yesterday, or tomorrow. It'd be that recent. Scenario 1, the meeting that goes too smoothly. When you're really leading and you're at the edge, you're out past the data. You're out past what's obvious. I mean, it's the necessary function of a leader to imagine a picture that is not yet real and paint that picture, to cast that vision, to guide people into something that seems impossible and out of reach. And what I've seen in a lot of executive settings is someone isn't going out on what could be. They're stopping with what is. And they have a beautiful slide deck on reality. And this is what's happening. And this is where the numbers are down. And somebody in the meeting says, well, I just appreciate how on top of this you are. But really what happened, that slide deck, it kept you from coming out and making a decision and saying, this is why the data says this, or this is why we see this trend and it's concerning. This is why we think it's happening. And this is what I think we should do about it. One of the things we've been kind of weaving in a little bit, and we're going to go more direct into it in coming YouTube lives, Lunch with Chris, is AI. I say, well, I think what we're seeing now, and we're going to see a lot more of this, is AI can't own the decision. You can't blame the AI for your bad performance, for your bad calls. And all leaders have bad calls. All leaders miss things. Normal. You're just trying to reduce those errors as much as you can. And so this moment when the meeting that goes too smoothly, I'm concerned about that because real meetings are exciting. They're disruptive. They're informative. They're advancing. They're turning the flywheel, making it clear whatever we're trying to spin on and get very, very accurate and precise on. And we can't do that without stakes, without claims. Second scenario. I think about it as the decision you turn into a committee. So a decision needs to be made. And rather than one person making the decision, we go, well, let's form a committee. And this committee is then going to come out with some kind of recommendation. Now, there are times to form a committee. Often, though, it's a cover for a leader making a decision. Now, none of my leadership work or theory is about a 6-gun shooter, lone wolf leader who's at the helm making all the calls. In fact, if any of you are real CEOs, you're not making all the decisions. You're doing it through the team, and the team is making decisions, and the hardest stuff is coming to you. You're not the bottleneck. But what I see in a lot of settings is, and this is so relevant to this data, they take a decision they need to make and they form a committee because it provides cover. It provides cover for a position that needs to be made. So we establish a cross-functional working group. You get some kind of scoring rubric, and you go, well, we're just being rigorous. And really what happens is we're kicking the can down the road. Third scenario, and we're just painting these out to help color it in for you. The team that stopped bringing you the real thing. What happens for a leader over time, if they habituate what we found in the research, if they habituate avoiding the hard conversation, avoiding zeroing in on the key issue, you train people how to treat you. I mean, we're all doing this, even if you're not the leader. We train people how to treat us. And when we make that a part of how we show up, we are actually training the people to not bring the things that make us uncomfortable. And especially when these leaders get something brought to them that's uncomfortable, and they're like, well, I don't like surprises. Tell me now. Tell me everything. And they invade boundaries, and they get aggressive. They posture up, and they power up, and they try to lead through the machinations of power in such a way that they're going to belittle others. That is an aggressive form. You get that. You get how that shuts things down. And I think a lot of people think that have never been in the rooms that that's how leaders at the top lead. Like that's the stereotype, that's the projection on TV, that's what gets the attention in screenwriting. What we found in our data, and it's true anecdotally for what I've experienced in 25 years of doing this kind of work, 10 plus years full time, being with teams and leaders, literally from Finland to Florida, California to China, it's not actually that. It's the opposite. And this is what we found in the research, that leaders lead for a performative composure and never really being in these places that we're dealing with the hard and prickly issues and even dealing with the hard and prickly people. And so when we train the team to not bring us the things that are ugly, that are still unsolved, we fall into what we found in the research. And it's just this: hiding. Most leadership content has the C-suite wrong. We found in our research, of the C-suite leaders we measured, 87% of them default under pressure to a hiding posture of leadership. 87%. Now that's more than like the larger averages for an organization. So it means that the higher they go, the more they habituate avoiding the hardest thing. Well, this makes complete sense when you think about it, because the nature of a business leadership team, an organizational leadership team, a nonprofit leadership team, a church leadership team, whatever, is you are trying to wrestle the most complex issues down into a wisdom and simple, elegant systems that help the organization perpetually move forward. When you're not dealing with those things, and we saw this with the data, you get to this place that you learn and you train the team and the organization that we're just going to avoid those things. So you take a junior leader who's insecure and they're overperforming to show their value. They're proving, is how we would say it. They're proving their value. Well, most people that have gotten to a real C-suite level have learned that overt insecurity at the top gets punished by boards, by investors, by the market. So the insecurity doesn't disappear. It just goes underground. It goes into this hiding response. And it doesn't look like fear. It looks like composure. And it's why some of the people that you would paint a caricature of that would be accurate at the very top, when they become psychopathic, sociopathic, we could say, and they're really insecure and they're hiding, they are like smooth talking criminals. You come in with an issue and you leave, and that issue should have confronted their leadership, but instead you leave and you feel like you're the problem. And so I think about it as like taking on different forms. I think one of those forms, and I've kind of already hit on this, is composure becomes a costume. It's a mask we wear that leaders end up, more than using it at the right moments, they end up serving it. And so underneath, you haven't really actually decided anything. You've just decided how you're going to look while you're deciding. And the way you know this is performative is because you hide at work a ton, but you tend to prove at home. And that's where the emotional outburst hits the quickest. That's where the spike in cortisol shows up, in the exaggerated tone, in the demonstrative motions, in the extreme complaining, in the intense argumentative stance, because they've learned to perform this way at work, and then it shows up in reality at home. And so we call it hiding. Another form would be you bury the conversation in lots of word salad or context. You may not be in a place that you're just drawing out information to have the power advantage. You just try to overwhelm with a hype about the positivity. You overwhelm with lots of metaphors. You overwhelm with lots of stories. And your arguments begin to be like, if you could visualize it like an argument tree, you're shooting off here into a point, you're going in here to a point, you're going in here to a point, you're circling back around to this point, you're coming out to this point. And you, through this word salad, talk yourself clear, but at the end of it, everybody else is confused. Nobody really knows what you said because you haven't disciplined yourself to not hide. You haven't disciplined yourself to be clear. I know this is age old. I referenced this last YouTube live, but I think it's worth saying again because this is the conversation we're having. Like the story that has captured human imagination for thousands and thousands of years. And it captures the imagination worldwide. It's a part of all three major religions. And you look at this story, and it's the story of the garden, Adam and Eve. And what do? And Adam says the words, I hid because I was afraid. I can't think of a more true statement that sums up the dumb decisions I've made in leadership, the ways I've led for my own validation more than impact, the ways that I've been in situations that I should have gone in this direction, but I went this direction away from it. I hid because I was afraid. I tried to cover it up. I tried to move past it. I tried to hype past it. I tried to talk my way out of it, all because I was afraid. I hid. So I want you to think about it as like really executive attention or executive maturity. There's two kinds of composure. And the first kind is earned. Like that's the positive. A leader has done the identity work. They're not getting an identity from the wins or losses. They're not riding the highs and lows of the moment. Their identity is not being placed in their role. Do you think I'm doing a good job? Or in the relationships. Do you like me? Do I fit in here? Am I meeting your needs? Do you find me dependable? Am I living up to the values that you think I should be living up to so you could consider me a followable leader? When a leader has done the identity work and they're not dominated in their mind and activated to convince people they're doing a good job and you should like me, that sense of composure is earned. Like that's hard fought for. And I've, the only reason I do what I do and teach what I teach is because I need it the most. I have squared up with many moments where I've led for my own validation more than impact. And when I should say, I reflectively process the day, I can usually find in any given day a moment where I led for my own validation more than impact. So it's not like you reach this state of perfection because new levels bring new devils, new stresses bring new insecurities. And you find these ways that you drift into these default insecurities under pressure. That kind of work, though, if you're paying attention, if you're learning, and if you're welcoming these insecurities and you're not running from your doubts, but you're letting them hit you and you're processing them and you're being transformed by them, it's all gold that grows you. That's an earned composure. It's not wrong to want validation. We all want validation. You're not going to fix yourself from wanting validation. Even a leader that says, I don't want validation, I can ask them a few questions and in about a 3-minute conversation, figure out where they want validation. It's where we go to it or where we go to get it. When we make our roles or the relationships, do people think I'm doing a good job? Do they like me? When we make that the source of our validation, we don't have an earned composure. We have a performative composure. And the performed composure leader is thinking through how they show up in the room to the title, to the reputation. He's unflappable. She's rock solid. And the performative leader, the one who is in that space that they haven't done the work, and it's not an earned standing that they have within themselves, they are. Even if they're brilliant, a majority of the time, it's why we're calling it the 3% shift. At least 3% of the time, in their most stressed out, insecure moments, what we know is at the C-suite executive level, more often than not, they are going to hide. That's what they're going to do. So I want to give you 3 practices that help me. These 3 practices can help you. And I'll hit them briefly just as a way of you having something to take away today. Number 1, say I don't know out loud in a room this week. Like when that issue is there and it's confronting you, and you're squared up with it, and it's like a mirror and it's reflecting back something you need to see, and you don't yet know the answer, it is actually a sign of strength and maturity to be able to say, I don't know. It does not make you unfollowable as a leader. It does not cause people to lose respect in you. Now, if you're saying, I don't know in every meeting and never coming back around and giving clarity, and you're not wrestling through hard issues and willing to put your name on things, well, of course, that speaks for itself. Thank you, Captain Obvious. But for a lot of leaders, saying I don't know out loud, they're not aware of how stepping into what they think will feel humiliating will actually form humility in them and draw the team in deeper. They're going to help you, and they have a wisdom that you need. You may be a great starter, but they're going to build that idea out and make it more whole, and they're going to finish it. Number 2, find one decision you've outsourced to a committee, you have offloaded to a working group that really needed a gutsy, courageous, clear call. And again, this is not about you being the bottleneck. This is not about all decisions have to come through you. That's an reaction to what I'm saying. Most leaders are the bottleneck. They're deciding too much. But at the C-suite executive level, because we see this hiding pattern, and anecdotally I can affirm it, you're usually 1 or 2 gutsy calls from your leadership taking on a new life. Because really every business problem is a culture problem, every culture problem is a leadership problem, and every leadership problem is an identity problem. So where are those gutsy calls that need to be made? Number 3, take our IFQ. You can go to taketheifq.com. You can go to siteshift.com and find the IFQ link there too, SIGHTshift.com. You will see where you prove or hide. You'll see if you're more of a hider than a prover. You'll see what it looks like for you to be in this place and to drift into that leadership mistake, that default move you make under pressure. And by seeing it, you can start to work on it. And you can start to be that kind of leader who has that earned composure, who's not dominated by emotions, nor are they denying them. They're using them as clues and signals to grow, to be emotionally intelligent and lead well. That's the kind of leaders we love to help transform, build, develop, grow at SiteShift. That's our passion. That's our obsession. You can be that kind of leader. And it doesn't take the big, grandiose moves you think it does. It's just by noticing the small, little moments of insecurity and where you're hiding. So just think right now, what's a big move, a decision, not out of hype, not out of proving yourself, a gutsy call that you need to make? What's keeping you from making it? What's keeping you from stepping forward on it? Okay, you can throw things that stood out to you in the chat, throw questions in the chat. Always glad to be here with you at Lunch with Chris. And I hope you have a fantastic day. May we be the kind of leaders who put our names on things, stand by our decisions, be the kind of leaders that people can count on, because we can't do it all. We can't rescue every situation in our organization with superhuman strength, but we can be what the job entails. It's the job to make those calls, make those decisions, turn over those rocks, look for what's there, be honest about it, and go. Thanks for being here. Peace out, everybody.